I'd like to begin by sharing a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, one of our Unitarian Universalist forebears. Faith and love are apt to be spasmodic in the best minds. We live on the brink of mysteries and harmonies into which we never enter, and with our hand on the door latch, we die outside. This quote reminds me that there are things related to awe and wonder that I'd like to see and experience before I die. I don't want to arrive at death's door with regrets about the things I meant to do, the things I meant to say, the places I meant to go, and the books I wanted to read. But somehow I didn't because I didn't have the time and I was too wrapped up in the hubbub of daily life, Facebook, computer games, and other trivialities. Surely there are many passages and doors that are accessible and that I still have the opportunity to enter and explore. There are the doors that open to self-development, spiritual exploration, intellectual awakening, a fulfilling relationship, sharing and shaping the growth of others, building more self-esteem in myself and others, becoming self-actualized, or at least setting out on the path. And there may be doors and opportunities that you too look forward to. To continue this metaphor, too many of us don't approach the door or the room that contains wonder, or die with our hand on the door latch. We don't even start walking toward any place where these doors might be, these doors that lead to fulfillment and growth. We don't make a plan. We don't chart a course. Sometimes we don't even realize that there is worth in certain activities, such as travel to a third world country, journaling, gardening, taking a cooking class, mentoring an immigrant in English. We engage in what I call passive living. We sit in our comfy chairs, we cruise in our comfy cars, we listen to music with lyrics we can't always understand, and we watch TV shows that don't advance our growth. Now, don't think I'm being accusatory. I confess I spend my fair share of time watching Fixer Upper, The Property Brothers, and cooking shows, playing word games, and reading mystery novels. But in the greater framework of life, and life, the universe, and everything, I have to admit that probably some of these activities don't lead to great major spiritual growth. Considering how we may spend our leisure time, though, there are likely to be moments in life where we have an inkling that there might be more out there, and we panic, like the little boy in the book that Caitlin read. We panic because the getting there seems difficult or impossible, and we don't seek out someone who might be able to help. But here's my point. Sometimes we go through the motions of being involved in life, and we're not really committed. Or we do it because it is the easiest course, or because it is the trendy thing to do. It doesn't change us or grow our soul, so to speak. So we might read good poetry, or we might read a good book, but we might miss the point. Or we read it because it is a bestseller, and so we can say at a special function, a social gathering, yes, I've read Maya Angelou's poems, or yes, I've read this latest bestseller. So it comes down to what I call sipping life through a straw, daintily, rather than eating and enjoying a feast with gusto. I'd rather see people eat watermelon with their fingers until the juice ran down their elbows. Messy to be sure, but with gusto. A few years ago, we had a guest speaker at Tapestry who spoke about the role of religion and how it should facilitate our becoming the best at living into who we are. And part of his sermon was about how we should find more ways to enjoy wow moments and experiences. We should be so captivated by life and each other that we walk around all the time as the people of wow, who just can't get over how amazing life is. I found this very intriguing, and I had never heard anyone explain that about being the purpose of religion, at least not quite that way. I certainly found this more appealing than being told I was here on earth to atone for the sin of Adam. And I remember thinking that I may have been traveling down some paths to wow throughout my life without necessarily calling it by that name. I have been wowed by books I've read, and music I've heard, and films I've watched, and travel experiences. I was wowed in Africa, walking with lions and petting them at a place in Zimbabwe called the Lion Encounter. Young cubs being rehabilitated there and raised in captivity were allowed to walk freely with tourists out in the bush to get used to the natural habitat outside their compounds before they learn to hunt and before they are ready for release. I got to pet them, walk with them, and have pictures taken. It is an amazing feeling to put your hand on the back of an adolescent cub and feel its fur. On the same trip, I was wowed riding on the Okavango River in Botswana in a type of dugout canoe. It holds just two people and a poler. The poler is the man who stands at the back with a very long pole, and he uses it to propel the boat forward. Some travel writers include the Okavango on their lists of the most beautiful places in the world, and I was there. The sunlight shimmered on the water where water lilies floated. The wings of dragonflies were iridescent as they caught the light. Birds and insects called from the riverbanks, and it was the only noise that broke the silence except for the occasional splash of water as the poler moved his pole. And I was mesmerized by the natural beauty, and I was taking it in, and as I looked to the bank, a herd of elephants came lumbering down the bank, and after a trek of several yards, they turned and paraded across the river. They were majestic. I was wowed by other travel experiences, like seeing icebergs in Greenland, visiting Normandy Beach and the American Military Cemetery, or by cruising down the Rhine. I've been wowed by some tour guides I've met and some fellow travelers. I've been wowed by having conversations with really interesting people, many of them here at Tapestry. I was wowed seeing Willie Nelson and Arlo Guthrie live, and I was wowed hearing activist attorney Brian Stevenson, who spoke at the UUA General Assembly in New Orleans. I've been wowed by certain natural wonders like botanical gardens, such as Bouchard Gardens in Canada. And I am often wowed by talented people I run into, often by happenstance, such as musicians, artists, jewelers, teachers, and professors. And I've been wowed hearing sermons here at Tapestry. You can design your own wow experience. We can become wow crafters. That's the new word I've made up. And you may not have to look far to find ways and places to have a wow experience. Your destinations and the doors you want to open or knock on, or rooms you wish to enter, may not be the same as mine, and they don't have to be. You may feel exhilarated hiking the Grand Canyon or skiing in Colorado. You may have a goal of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, or learning to fly a plane, or becoming a certified ocean diver. You might find joy in certain events with family, children, and grandchildren. And I may prefer an African safari or a castle in Europe. However, in order to set out on our respective chosen paths towards these doors that lead to wow, you first have to wake up and be aware. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "The purpose of life is to live it, taste experience to the utmost, to reach out eagerly and without fear for newer and richer experience." I agree. One writer on the internet that I found as I was doing research said that one way we can start out on a purposeful path is to consume uplifting and meaningful content. You've heard that expression, "you are what you eat." Well, we are also the texts we read, like newspapers, magazines, and internet articles. We are the movies we watch, the podcasts we listen to, the conversations we have, and the people we spend time with. These things mold how we perceive the world and how we make meaning. If you constantly consume negative and fear-based content, like some of our newscasts lately or some of our social media, then that's likely how you're going to experience the world. The same goes for uplifting and inspiring content. Your mind will believe whatever you tell it. So, it is our job to feed our brains wisely. This makes for a more purposeful life. Here are a few tips I found while doing my research. You build meaningful and supportive relationships. That's number one. We may start out having friends when we're young, but as we grow and spend time with these people, we might find that their affiliation no longer supports our growth. Some of you are already growing meaningful relationships with family members or Tapestry members. Number two, you take responsibility. You don't run away from your problems. You don't blame others for what goes wrong in your life. When you don't get the results you want, you identify the changes you can make and develop a plan to make those changes. Number three, you are authentic. You develop purpose and values and identity, and you identify your principles and goals. You spend more time pursuing these by becoming more focused. Number four, you put your own needs first. This is hard for some of us, but we can't grow as persons if we constantly sacrifice ourselves for the needs of others. There needs to be some balance. Number five, you keep moving forward. Tony Robbins, self-help guru, said, quote, "The past does not equal the future unless you choose to live there," end quote. So, you move forward, and as you move forward, you ask yourself what lessons you've learned. And some of us have to ask that question more than once. Purposeful behavior strengthens humankind. It reinforces a commitment to living, and it adds color and depth to the canvas of life. Even if it is a splotchy and not quite a masterpiece kind of canvas, it has value if done with fervor. It is failure to act, to be too timid to begin, again, like the little boy in the story, that is really sad. Years ago, before I discovered Tapestry, I used to attend a series of Sunday morning lectures given by an unusual, self-styled wisdom seeker. He drew only a motley and sparse group of followers, but he had some interesting and useful tips about this very topic, living purposefully. In one of his lectures, I learned about a Greek concept called Safra Sanae, and it dates back to the time of Plato. Safra Sanae was the personified spirit of moderation, self-control, temperance, restraint, balance, proportionality, and discretion. She was one of the good spirits that escaped Pandora's box. The notion of Safra Sanae is similar in many ways to our UU principles and an extension of the Golden Rule. Plato and the Greeks considered Safra Sanae the ultimate ideal toward which a person should strive. It meant trying to come as close to excellence as one could within the frailties of human nature by restraining impulses to unrestricted freedom, avoiding excesses, and obeying the inner laws of harmony and proportion. In short, being in right relationship with the universe. The goal was to be in balance in all areas of one life. The human body, a total organism, functions best when all the aspects and facets are developed optimally. So these purposeful Greeks valued eating and drinking in moderation, getting enough exercise, and engaging the intellect as well as the body. They advocated playfulness along with the pursuit of the serious. They advocated learning and learning about when to stand firm and when to compromise. In our own lives, we may not achieve Safra Sanae, but we can make the effort and enjoy the pursuit. As Paul McCartney said in one of the Beatles' songs, Fixing a Hole, I'm taking the time for a number of things that weren't important yesterday. So, for my own part, I don't want to have the possibilities for awe and wonder and wow achieved totally by chance. I think a little planning is in order. So, I try to read books that are recommended by my avid reader friends, and every once in a while, I look over lists of books that have been nominated for awards, like the Pulitzer Prize or the Man Booker Prize. I put trips on my bucket list based on comments by my friends who also travel. I look for movies that have received some good reviews by critics whose opinions I've come to trust. I want to find the right doors while I still have some time. I'd like to think that with some luck and maybe some work, I can turn some door latches and go in and experience the wonder. And even if the visits are short, I will be glad I got there and savor the richness of the rooms I visit, even if all the mysteries aren't explained. I hope the awe and the wow will be palpable. And in the process, I hope I remember to savor the journey that brought me there.